All right, so here we are again with another DC Multiverse unboxing from Mcfarlane Toys, and this is Metallo, just Metallo, not Metallo Classic, not Metallo Bronze Age, not Metallo Secret Origins, just Metallo. That's all we get. So this one's gonna get a little confusing when I go over the history of the character because there were a lot of different versions of Metallo, and honestly, I'm not sure which version of Metallo that this one is supposed to be because it doesn't, again, give us any indication on the side of the box. And the illustration on the back is from the miniseries Superman Secret Origins by Jeff Johns and Gary Frank. Very nice artwork in that issue. Well, in the whole series, I mean. And we can see Metallo is wearing an armored costume based on his Bronze Age costume. Again, this is where it's going to get confusing. But one of the interesting things about this version of Metallo is that this one was John Corbin, and most versions of Metallo are John Corbin, and he was drawn to look like Kevin Bacon in the comic book. So interesting choice, I thought. Now, the figure itself, looking at it, it does look to be mostly a reuse of parts from Lex Luthor in his power suit. Everything except for obviously the head and the upper torso and the abdomen look to be reused from Lex Luthor. So, anyway, let's go ahead and open them up. We've been over this DC Multiverse packaging enough times already. I don't feel the need to delve much further into it. This one, I believe, was a Target exclusive, and I actually got him months ago, but just hadn't gotten around to opening him up yet. So, I had other badder fish to fry, I guess you'd say. But, I didn't really have anything planned out for the rest of this week. I've had a lot of themes and a lot of, where I get in, like, a whole assortment of various figures, but I don't really have that right now. But what I do have is kind of a nice coincidence. We can take a break in terms of multiverse from the usual Batman characters, because God knows I get a bunch of Batman characters, and delve into something that unfortunately is a little underrepresented as far as Mcfarlane Multiverse, which is Superman villains. And there are a lot of great Superman villains. I'd say he probably has maybe the fifth best rogues gallery, which does not seem very high. But you got to realize number one is Batman, number two is Spider-Man, number three is the Flash, and number four is Captain America. So all those guys have just so many great villains, and I would say Superman has almost as many great villains as Captain America. So, but Cap does have him beat in that regard as far as this comic book reader is concerned, anyway. So he does come with an accessory, and it's this chunk of kryptonite, which I'm going to dig out of here. So there it is, chunk of kryptonite. And it's got a flat bottom, so you can just set it on the ground next to him. I don't know if he can hold on to it at all. And, of course, I did forget, almost, to get the trading card and the stand out of here. So let's go ahead and get that. And thankfully, as I always enjoy whenever they do this, they have put the stand and the trading card on the same bubble. So that's going to make it a lot easier for me to get out this trading card. And here we go with the same piece of Gary Frank art on the front. Hey there, Daniel Evans. How you doing today? So same piece of artwork on the front and on the back. That's what the back looks like. And it reads, Metallo, data file, real name John Corbin. Metallo is made up of two vital components, advanced technology and the depraved human mind of John Corbin. With these linked together by cybernetic interface powered by kryptonite, Metallo has become a living weapon who only seems happy when targeting Metropolis's true Man of Steel, Superman. So, according to the trading card, this one is John Corbin. So I'm going to assume that means that this is the Secret Origins version of John Corbin that I was talking about earlier. The same one that is on the artwork on the back, but we can see it's not an exact representation of it since the colors are a little bit different. He's got like orange legs and pelvis instead of these green pants. But it's kind of similar. I suppose he does look kind of like he could have Kevin Bacon's face under that faceplate. And here's the figure stand, typical McFarlane Multiverse figure stand, matte black with a glossy black DC logo embossed on it. Most posts I make are being miraculously removed as I make them. Oh, that's never fun. Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that a few times myself. All right, so it looks like there's only one rubber tab holding him. Well, it's one of the double rubber tabs, but still only one double rubber tab. So that's good. We can go ahead and pull him out of the package. Oh, that was easy. That was so much fun. Okay. So this is why I was saying that this is going to get a little confusing. And Metallo has a very long and interesting history in comic books. There technically was a previous Metallo in the Golden Age, but that Metallo, his name was only spelt with one L, so like metal O Metallo, and he was completely unrelated to the later Metallos. He was a scientist who had invented a super strength serum, and had also discovered the world's most indestructible metal, so he made it into a suit and decided to fight Superman, because that's always a good idea to try to fight Superman. Now, the later version of Metallo was the probably the most famous version of Metallo. The one, if you've ever heard of Metallo, this is the one you probably heard of, was John Corbin, and he was introduced in the comic strip in the 1950s. And that story was later adapted into an issue of the comic book. Now, the comic strip was drawn by Curt Swan, my personal favorite Superman artist, and the comic book was drawn by Al Plastino, who is a fine Superman artist. He definitely deserves his place in history. But he's like the third of the fourth, even I'd say, yeah, fourth. I'm almost thinking Kurt Schaffenberger as being a Lois Lane artist more than a Superman artist, but he'd probably be the fourth of those big four Silver Age Superman artists, which is not really a bad place to be. It's not even that Al Plastino was a bad artist; he was a good artist. He just was not as good as Curt Swan or Wayne Boring or Kurt Schaffenberger, who are three legends. And Al Plastino is a guy who's good. I like Al Plastino. I'm not trying to talk crap about him, but he was not as skilled as Curt Swan, is what I'm trying to say. So in the comic strip, Curt Swan was able to draw John Corbin, a character who was supposed to resemble Superman closely enough that people actually thought he maybe was Superman. He was able to draw him with just subtle enough differences in the face that you could tell, oh, well, this is why people would think he looks like Superman. But at the same time, he doesn't look enough like Superman that the reader would get them confused. Al Plastino was not that skilled at subtle facial differences. Few artists are as skilled at subtle facial differences as Curt Swan. So he gave his version of John Corbin a mustache, which he shaved off when he disguised himself as Superman. But but yeah, that version of Metallo was a cyborg who was basically like the human head on a robot body, and he actually dies in that comic book appearance. But he was, I think, made an impression enough on the readers that when these younger readers grew up and were writing and drawing comic books themselves, they wanted to bring Metallo back, or at least the concept of Metallo. Since John Corbin had died, they brought in his brother, Richard Corbin. And Richard Corbin was actually the guy who wore this funky orange and green outfit as Metallo, like this kind of armored costume. And that's where this version of Metallo really came from. Even though this is supposed to be John Corbin, it was Richard Corbin that was the Metallo that first wore this outfit. So this would have been around like the late 70s, early 80s, around that time period that this Metallo was active. And by the time the mid 80s rolled around and DC had decided it was time to refresh, he does look like Captain Atom because he's got a big atom on his chest. Here's Captain Atom right here. So I have Captain Atom. nearby, coincidentally enough. We can see them both together. How about that? But with the big atoms on their chest. Too bad the atom is on the other side of the room, because then we see Metallo and Captain Atom and the Atom. But whatever, I'm not going all the way across the room right now. So when John Byrne came on to the Superman comics to revamp them for the 80s, and it was what we would these days call a reboot, Byrne had decided that one of the first villains he was going to bring back was Metallo. And in fact, Metallo first appeared in the first issue of Byrne's Superman series, which they took the original Superman series and retitled it Adventures of Superman, so that Byrne could have a Superman #1 as per his contract. So it was very important to him that he draw his own Superman #1. So Metallo was the villain in that, and it was John Corbin again. He brought back John Corbin. Since this is a reboot, he could do it. He wasn't dead because he didn't exist yet. So John Corbin in this version was reinvented as rather than a robot with a human head on it, he was a human brain inside a robot body with a fleshy covering over it. So this version of Metallo was much more influenced by the Terminator, which was a movie that had come out fairly recently, and of course, was very popular at the time, and still is regarded as very popular. So one of my favorite movies of the '80s, definitely. But yeah, and even the way that he drew Corbin's fleshy covering over the robotic endoskeleton kind of looked like a little bit of a caricature of Arnold Schwarzenegger, a little bit. And like Arnold Schwarzenegger with like long white hair that was kind of pulled back into a ponytail, but still kind of looked. I didn't really catch it at the time when I was a kid, but when I went back and reread it when I was older, I'm like, dude, he drew Arnold, like straight up. That's Arnold. So as Superman was battling Metallo throughout the issue, more and more of the flesh would get torn away, and we would see the robotic character underneath. And then Metallo had this basically like door in his chest, so his pecs kind of opened up and completely exposed the kryptonite gem underneath it. And then at the end of the story, just when it looks like he's about to do Superman in, Metallo just mysteriously disappears. We don't know what happened to him till the next issue. And it turned out he was captured by Lex Luthor. And while Luthor had his scientific team examining Metallo, they told him, yeah, he's powered by this piece of radioactive rock in his chest. We can't figure out how to get it out without killing him. And Luthor says, I know how to get it out. And just grabs the thing and yanks it out. He did not care if Metallo lived or died. He just wanted the kryptonite. So, but that was not the end of Metallo. He had fail-safe stuff programmed into his armor, and it was able to put his brain into suspended animation until it could find itself, the robot body could find itself a power source, and then Metallo was back. So that's pretty much what Metallo was in most versions going forward since then, was this kind of Terminator type robot with a fleshy covering and a human brain inside of it, a cyborg, if you will. Usually, again, powered by a piece of kryptonite in his chest. The Superman the Animated Series version was basically this John Corbin in a robot body. This time, Corbin's robot body was actually made by Lex Luthor himself, who already had some kryptonite and put a chunk of it in Corbin's chest to power him. Corbin was played in Superman the Animated Series by one of my favorite actors of all time, Malcolm McDowell. You probably know him best from Clockwork Orange, where he played Alex, and lots of great performances and lots of great movies since then. But my personal favorite movie of Malcolm McDowell's was Time After Time, in which he plays H.G. Wells. I almost said Orson Welles. H.G. Wells, who invents a time machine that's stolen by Jack the Ripper, and he has to follow Jack the Ripper to early 1980s San Francisco to capture him. And it's one of my favorite time travel movies made in the '80s by Nicholas Meyer, which mostly takes place in San Francisco, and that's it's one of those things. It's odd that happened twice, but they're both good movies, so I'm not going to complain. Anyway, so yeah, Metallo on that was very much the John Byrne version with the metallic endoskeleton covered with a fleshy skin that got kind of torn away as he fought Superman, and eventually it was just completely gone. And I think they brought that they brought that Nicholas Meyer. Yeah, he great director. He did a lot of Star Trek movies. He did 3 Star Trek movies. 3 of my favorite Star Trek movies. Wrath of Khan was my favorite. Anyway, so yeah, a lot of the merchandise of that version of Metallo usually shows him with like at least part of the flesh still over his face and kind of half of it torn away. So like a battle damage, he almost permanently has a battle damage look. I want to say when they brought him back in Justice League Unlimited, that's just what he looked like all the time. So I don't know. Maybe because they felt like that was the most recognizable version of the character at the time. Anyway, there's your history of Metallo. Well, we got one more thing. We'll go back to Secret Origins, which I already talked about a little bit. So when they did Metallo in Secret Origins, they gave him the I keep calling it a costume, but it's actually like incorporated into his body. So they gave him the design that Richard Corbin had in the Bronze Age. And that's the version of Metallo I'm guessing that we're holding in our hand right now. So anyway, let's go ahead and talk about the articulation. So Metallo can look up about that far. He can look down about that far. Tilt his head kind of quizzically from side to side. Rotate the head all the way around. Of course, the arms rotate all the way around the shoulders. Has a butterfly joint. Can move back this way. Can move forward this way. Arms do have a bicep hole, so the biceps rotate all the way around. You got double jointed elbows. That's about the range of motion you get at the elbows. He's got the cool Mcfarlane wrist articulation, so the wrists rotate all the way around, and then it's on this ball jointed hinge, so you can really get this wrist into whatever kind of position you want to. Very cool. He's got an upper torso articulation, all this great Mcfarlane torso articulation. You can get all kinds of really cool dramatic poses out of him by moving him around. It does not seem like there's quite as much movement as usual at the upper torso, at least not to bend forward. But to bend back, I think it's got like just enough. So if you wanted to put him into like a kind of a flying pose, you could get him into kind of a flying pose. Legs can kick up about that far. He does have this rubber trunk piece on him that most Mcfarlane figures tend to have. So there we go. Got double jointed knees. That is about the range of motion you get at the knees. I heard the Khan name was taken by Jesus's family. Oh, really? Interesting. So Khan was actually Khan Noonien Singh was named after a friend of Gene Roddenberry's that he knew in World War II. I think his name was just Noonien Singh, and they just put Khan on there to make it sound more like a king, like regal. So I'm guessing Noonien Singh was a Sikh, because the character of Khan was supposed to be a Sikh, even though he did not have a beard, and Singhs are supposed to have long, luxurious beards. But Khan didn't have a beard, and when Greg Cox wrote his novel, his backstory explaining the origin of Khan, he explained in the novel why Khan did not have a beard. But and Khan was played by a Mexican actor, Ricardo Montalban. So, back then they didn't really care so much about what people's ethnicities were. They just cast whatever actor was good in the part. Ricardo Montalban played a lot of characters that weren't Mexicans. He played Native Americans and all kinds of things. In this case, he was playing a Sikh. So yeah, they didn't really address too much of that part of his backstory on the show. It was just kind of like an offhanded reference. Again, I'm guessing probably because the real Noonien Singh was a Sikh. Singh is a very common last name among Sikhs. But when they brought him back in the movie, I don't think they mentioned it much at all. I don't think they even said his full name in the movie. He was just colored. So, but yeah. Also, Noonien Soong, the inventor of data and lore in Star Trek: The Next Generation, that was another character that was named after Noonien Singh. But I'm getting off on a Star Trek tangent. It's really easy to get me to talk about Star Trek. So anyway, let's go back to the articulation of the action figure. I hope you enjoyed my little Star Trek segue. They'll happen. It's something that'll happen. So anyway, his ankle points down about that far. It points up about that far, and it rotates all the way around because it's on that cool Mcfarlane ankle joint again. And this is one where you can get it into pretty much any kind of pose you really want to. Very cool. I love the Mcfarlane ankle and wrist articulation. Very nice. So I like the colors on this guy. Like the metallic green is really cool. I really like that metallic green. It's a very cool shade of green. Very shiny, very metallic. The lighter metallic green, not so bad. It's not as shiny as the dark green, but it's still pretty cool. The orange just barely got any metallic quality to it at all. I think they probably could have put a little more metallic quality onto the orange. But other than that, it's a pretty good paint. I think it all comes together very nicely. And yeah, it might have been nicer if the orange was a little more shiny. But I'm not going to complain too much about it. It's nice that they were able to give him this metal skull-like mask and not make him look too much like Doctor Doom. It looks a little bit like Doctor Doom. You're not going to avoid that when you make a metal mask like that. But yeah. So pretty cool figure. They could have very easily done the more Terminator type of Metallo, but I think they made a good decision in going with this design since it is a little more distinct, even if it's not really as recognizable to the general public, I think. But I always really liked this design of Metallo, and of course I read comics back in the early '80s, so I'm going to remember that one. Anyway, like I said, I figured I'd do these two Superman villains that I have this week, since I happen to have two Superman villains, and they don't make a whole lot of them. But I also had Brainiac that I got from Amazon recently. I only paid like $16 for him, so that was a pretty good deal. This is the Brainiac from the Injustice video game, so that gives me a couple of more Superman villains for my collection. So that's pretty cool. I'd like for them to do General Zod. I mean, they've done General Zod before, but I didn't really care for that design. I would want like one of the movie versions of General Zod. I would want, either Terrence Stamp or Michael Shannon. And it's weird that they didn't do Michael Shannon when they did the Flash movie, since he was actually in that. But I figure they'll probably do him eventually, since they do like a bunch of Henry Cavill Superman figures. And I do have that 2-pack with the Henry Cavill Superman versus Doomsday from Batman v Superman. That's on the way, hopefully soon. I've got that pre-ordered on Big Bad Toy Store. It was supposed to show up in mid-November, but here we are on November 27th. It still hasn't shown up yet. Sorry, I'm digging glass out of my face. Oh, geez. You don't need to apologize to me. You just need to get that glass out of your face. It's like, you don't need to be typing right now. It's cool. It's like, that is completely understandable. You have no need to apologize to me for that. You take care of yourself first. Absolutely take care of yourself first. Talking about Jesus, wasn't there the thing about don't worry about the speck in your friend's eye when you got a plank sticking out yours? Well, don't worry about the YouTube comments when you're digging glass out of your face. Anyway, so I think the next one's going to be this Brainiac figure that I got to open up here, and then we'll have both of our new Superman villains opened up, and then I think the next thing I will do after that, unless something else cooler comes up first, is I did manage to get the classic version of Bazooka off of Amazon. Also, he was a Black Friday sale, so I was able to save me like $5 or something on that one. So that's cool. So I'll be opening up him next. I had to get him once I had Alpine. I'm like, yeah, the Tiger Force version's cool. I really like the Tiger Force version, but it's got to be the classic version to go with Alpine. You know what I mean? Anyway, that's pretty much it for Metallo. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you're not too busy digging glass at your face, make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think about Metallo. Both this figure and the character in general, there's a lot to discuss with Metallo. A lot of interesting aspects of the character. So I look forward to seeing some comments about that down below. So we will talk to you next time. Bye.